I'm sure you kept a close eye on it. What were your thoughts on the Southeast Asian Games performance? Let's talk about the men's first. I mean, this would have been right up your alley.
Yeah.
What did you think of the performance?
I thought we got better as the competition went on. Definitely we got better with each passing game. But I mean that's the trend for Philippine national teams, youth teams included. And that's a reflection that we just don't do enough preparations.
Welcome to another episode of Across the Line. On this episode, we've got Anto Gonzales on the show, and we talk about everything from his playing career to his coaching career, his life with UP, Claret, and the national team. We talk about the under-22s, what he sees for the future of Philippine football. All of that is contained in a juicy episode for you, so please do enjoy it. And if you enjoy the football content that we provide on Across the Line, please do subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to rate and review, tell a friend about it, and to find us on social media Across the Line on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Across the Line, and today we've got a very special guest on the show. No Chris Greatwich today, so it's just Jing Jamlang, but today we've got a real, how should you call it, a real institution in Philippine football, you know, especially with my generation. Everybody will know his name. 8-time UAAP champion, twice as a player, 6 times as a coach, 1 time as the women's champion, 5 times as the men's. He's coached the youth national team, under 22s, under 15s. He's coached the senior side. He's played for the senior side. His credentials are amazing, and it's a real pleasure to have you on the show. Anto Gonzales, welcome to Across the Line.
Thank you, Jing. I'm quite happy to be here finally.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a very busy schedule for you, right? You have been undertaking twice a days with your men's and women's team in the University of the Philippines.
UAAP will start in a month's time.
Yeah.
So we're really in the thick of the preparations.
And you guys, you fit us in. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate you taking the time to be here.
I've been following the podcasts, and I love the topics, the guests, and it's very informative.
Yeah.
It provides a lot of insight on Philippine football. So hopefully I can contribute something to the discussions.
Definitely. I'm confident you will. So what are you busy with right now? Obviously, you're getting close to the next UAAP season, which is a priority for you, both for the men's and women's. What are preparations looking like at the moment?
Right now we're doing like what you said, twice a day sessions for both the men's and women's teams. We're deep into our tactical preparations, some conditioning work also. And of course, we're trying to build the cohesion of the team. So we're really trying to get everyone more confident. We hope to get everyone playing their best football by the start of the season.
You've been one of the most successful coaches over the last 10 years in the UAAP in particular. What has been the secret to that? I mean, I feel like you've developed such a consistent program over the last few years. What do you think is the reason behind the success you've achieved so far?
I believe we've been fortunate, to have some pretty good players in the squad also. And we've established the kind of culture that's like, to be honest, we don't mention winning as part of our objectives, but I feel like we have that winning culture, so to speak. Winning in a sense that we build the winning mentality in a way that we want each player to reach his or her full potential, and the support system is also in place. We really come together as a team. Like there are no subgroups for our teams, and everyone helping out each other. And then we've also been quite fortunate to have very good mentors. Aside from support system within the group, we have a very good support system outside of the teams also. Most notably, a lot of our UP alumni as well. Both former varsity players and non-varsity players who have been, very instrumental in providing the necessary support, for the kids to just be able to focus on performing at their best.
What kind of support is that? Monetary support?
Monetary, of course, moral support.
Yeah.
I think we have the best crowd during the games.
Sure, yeah.
The loudest, sometimes rude, but we appreciate their presence. We have a very strong support from the UP community.
Yeah.
And that plays a very huge role for our players to perform at their best.
That's an interesting thing you mentioned at the top, though. You said, you guys have a winning culture, but you guys don't talk about winning.
Yes.
So what do you guys speak about?
Targets, goals.
Yeah.
Tangible goals, intangible goals. We try to veer away from the idea of winning games just to reach the championship. There will be games where we would win convincingly in terms of the scoreline, but we wouldn't be happy with our performance. So we set objectives per game, and winning is not one of those objectives. And we just try to progress with each passing game.
Yeah.
So whatever needs to be improved from the previous game, we try to bring that towards the next game. So it's just constant improvement rather than, just getting a win.
Right. Now, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of your preparations for this upcoming season, but what can you run me through an example of what would you be telling your boys or your girls for that matter as well at this point in time of the season?
Like what I said, we're very particular with constant improvement. So every training session, like we set a topic.
Right.
For example, okay, we want to improve our transition offense in the middle third. So we'll come up with a plan. And of course, this assessment, we come up with a plan based on our weaknesses from, let's say, the last match. Okay, and then we come up with that plan and then try to address the weakness. And then we try to improve it into the next game. So if we meet our objectives, then even winning or regardless, we win or we lose.
Yeah.
If we meet our objective, then for us it's a success. We never attribute our success to winning.
Right.
It's always reaching the goals, the targets that we set for ourselves.
Very interesting. And it's a very competitive landscape that you find yourself in right now in the UAAP. When you look at the last 10 years, I believe there have been 3 for UP, I believe, in the men's. If I'm talking just men's, 3 for UP. There's been 2 for Ateneo, 2 as well for FEU.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of parity involved in the UAAP. Is that something that has always existed in the university competition, or do you feel as if mas maganda yung distribution ngayon ng talent, or is it a coaching thing? What do you think is the reason behind such competitiveness in the UAAP over the last 10 years?
I think most schools have really upped their recruitment process. A lot of the the good provincial players are already trying their are already playing here in the
Manila.
UAAP in Manila.
Yeah.
When I was playing UAAP football back in the early 2000s, between 1999 to 2004, it was UP, UST, and during my latter playing years at Ateneo. But one common characteristic of the more successful teams is really the recruitment. It plays a huge role. And then another thing is, once you've built a winning culture, it's hard to it just gets passed on.
Right.
from one year, one generation to
One generation.
another. And it takes a while for it to to wane down, especially when there's a coaching change, there's a leadership change.
Yeah.
Fortunately for us in UP, we've had continuity of the program. So even if we like change players, because the culture is in place, the philosophy is in place, and it's very easy for our seniors to pass it down to the younger players. I think that's one key ingredient for successful teams.
Right. Right now, you have been coaching UP now for how many years?
I started 2008.
2008. Wow. So like that's 11 years.
11 years.
Of coaching UP.
Yeah, for the men's team.
For the men's team.
For the women's team, I started 2013.
Right. And right now, it's going to be a tough road back. I mean, for the women, it's a three-peat now for the women's team of De La Salle University. Is it looking like they're going to be strong for defending their title next year? Or?
I think they're still the number one contender. They have very good recruits.
Yeah.
Their team is pretty much intact. They still have Sarah Castañeda, Mendaño, Alicia Del Campo. So it's still a pretty strong squad. And then you have UST and FEU. FEU is right in the mix for the top 2 spot in the women's league right now.
Okay.
So and they've improved tremendously as well. So it's gonna be a very competitive UAAP season for the women's category.
For the men, it's been kind of an exchange game with you and in Ateneo over the last
few years.
The last few years. How do you feel about this upcoming season?
The core of our team is still intact. Our story last season was we thought we had a strong group.
Yep.
But we felt that we didn't really play as a team the whole season. We had our moments, but we weren't as cohesive as the previous years or during like our championship year, the year before. So that's one thing we're trying to bring back in the squad for this coming UAP season. The cohesiveness and really just the firm desire, to make the necessary sacrifices for the team, because we feel that we still have a good squad.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of coming together and playing for each other.
Yeah. Fidel Takardon, is he back into full fitness?
Not yet. He's still recovering.
It's a big miss. He's a huge talent, that kid, huh?
He is.
Takardon.
Yeah. Actually, I see him as the next big thing, thing in terms of homegrown talent.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone in the country right now is as smart as he is at the youth level.
Yeah.
So much potential for that kid.
Speaking of potential, you get an opportunity. You are in a unique position to see a lot of the rising talent that's coming through the ranks in the Philippines, right? You coach the under-15s. As mentioned, you also are a mentor for the under-22, which I'd like to talk about at length a little later on. But also being involved with UP, seeing all the recruits, not only from your team, but the recruits of FEU, the recruits of UP, of UST and the like, and Ateneo. You see what's coming through. So I want to know, like, what is your assessment on the current generation that is coming through? Has there been a stark improvement from the recruits that you were seeing in 2019 to those that you were seeing back when you started in UP?
Definitely there is. I think there's more quality in the last 4 or 5 years. It can be attributed to the improved coaching education of the country. I think we have better coaches, and then more competitions, especially in key areas like Cebu, Davao, and there are like some provinces who have started to pick up, like Zamboanga, Northern Mindanao, Iloilo in the, Iloilo was
A hotbed.
a hotbed
Yeah.
in the past, but they're starting to pick up again. There are a number of Ilonggo players in UST, and I think quality-wise, the kids these days are better compared to my time 10, 15 years ago.
So it's just a matter of coaching, matter of having more opportunities to play
Yes,
the
definitely.
game. What in coaching do you think in particular has been the biggest contributor to the footballers that you're seeing today? What has changed in terms of coaching?
I think because we have more licensed coaches,
Sure.
the coaching approach, the coaching methodologies are more scientific. There's like more coaches are now aware of periodization, which is very important, especially in collegiate football. Before it was just all about maybe technical development. Now when you go through your coaching courses, you get introduced to the science behind the sport, the psychology behind the sport. So all of these areas play a huge role in developing a talent, and we've significantly improved in our know-how on those areas.
What do you mean by periodization? Sorry. It's a
This is like
mouthful to say.
when you there's like a microcycle and a macrocycle.
Okay.
So you plan your training intensity, load, duration based on your target competition date. So you start with your off season, and then during off season you try to establish your endurance, strength endurance,
Sure.
aerobic endurance, technical work, and then as you move into like early preseason, then you move into more an aerobic type of endurance, more strength, and then as you move to late preseason, this is like the month before your first game for the competition.
So around where you're at the moment
Yeah.
for the UAP.
Yeah. So you work on your speed, your power. So basically, the periodization program is geared in such a way that you wanna perform at your peak
Right.
by let's say the semifinals or the finals. So that's the main purpose of the periodization program.
So hindi bara-bara.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not.
That's what you're trying to avoid,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You don't want your players like losing gas in the
Yeah.
middle of the season because you built a program wherein there was no balance between loading and resting.
It's interesting. Now you're up against a lot of coaches who are equally well educated as yourself. Coach JP Merida, obviously. You're up against Alvin Ocampo now these days. You've got Coach Marjo. Who's in FEU at the moment right now?
Coach Bobby Park.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Coach
yeah.
Bobby Park.
Very
which
smart. Very smart.
You played
coach.
alongside
Yeah.
as well.
No. We didn't get to play together in
Oh,
Meralco.
you didn't cross
Yeah,
over
when
anymore.
I moved back to Meralco, he was not there anymore.
How much collaborating do you guys do as coaches? I mean, it seems like from the outside,
Mhm.
you guys are competitors. Obviously,
Yeah,
you're all
yeah.
on the pitch. For me, as a spectator outside, it's a breath of fresh air to see like, oh man, Coach JP. I know how meticulous
Yeah,
he is.
yeah,
I know how
yeah.
hardworking he is. I know that after a flight from Kaya from Iloilo, he'll come to training 4 hours later in the morning for the girls. The dedication is unreal. And then
Yeah.
there's the likes of you and Alvin, and I know these people are just full-blooded, football people, and they're there. And I know that the level is being raised by you guys, but inside the trenches, alongside one another, do you guys share notes? Do you guys share progress, best practices? What's the culture like between the coaches?
I think there's definitely a lot of mutual respect. That's a given. And most of us have one time or another, played together or played against each other. With regards to like sharing notes, like maybe we haven't been given that opportunity, or but I've been meeting lately with Alvin to discuss about youth development since we're like aligned in a sense that we want to see more homegrown players playing for our national teams, and we want a better performance for our youth national teams as well. So we've talked a lot about it lately, but not in terms of UAAP strategies or whatnot. So we haven't really discussed like among ourselves, but definitely there's a lot of mutual respect. Like we're all friends. Sometimes during games, when it gets emotional, there would be some skirmishes. But at the end of the day, we're here to help Philippine football. Like whichever player from LaSalle, excels, then we definitely would be happy to see that guy that kid perform. And because I think most of the coaches, the local coaches in the UAAP are really for seeing homegrown players progress into the national team. Even Coach Bobby Park, he was very supportive with releasing his players for the U22 competitions. Like he messaged me like, Coach, I really want to support you, and so we allow our kids or players to be involved with the national team program. So
man, it's so difficult for me to wrap my head around your schedule. You're coaching the two teams. There was a time where you were still playing, in fact, all the way until 2017, as you mentioned to me while the mics were off. So you've been coaching since 2008. You're juggling playing. You're juggling two teams once the women's team became yours. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of football on your hands. And then there was a time just last year where you were also coaching the under-22 side. You went to the Merlion Cup. You went into an AFF championship. And then obviously there was a SEA Games. Unfortunately, you weren't involved in that. I'm sure you kept a close eye on it. What were your thoughts on the Southeast Asian Games performance? Let's talk about the men's first. I mean, this would have been right up your alley.
Yeah.
What did you think of the performance?
I thought we got better as the competition went on. Definitely we got better with each passing game. But I mean that's the trend for Philippine national teams, youth teams included. And that's a reflection that we just don't do enough preparations.
Right.
Coaches not fully knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the players, not fully knowing what appropriate playing formation is beneficial for the characteristics of the players. That's a sad reality. But what's a given though is like the fighting spirit of the team.
For sure.
Like during their last game against East Timor, that was very, very evident. And in as much as it was such an admirable thing to see especially from the more senior players like Amani and Shock, pushing themselves to the limit. You also feel for them because in a sense, this is my opinion, in a sense we didn't fully equip them for the SEA Games, when in fact they could have done so much more had we help them prepare for these games. So there's a good side to it, like seeing them really fight. But of course, you also feel bad that the team could have done so much more.
Where do you feel as if things could have been different? I mean, more time to prepare?
Yeah, more time to prepare, definitely. But, preparation is relative.
Yeah.
Other countries have prepared starting U14.
I see what you mean.
Vietnam,
Okay.
Thailand.
That long term, you mean? Not talking about just this year. We're
Yes.
talking about in general how to prepare them heading into what should be the final hurdle in their development into senior players, right?
Definitely.
Now, there's an interesting thing that happened in the trajectory of this under-22 team. You look at the preparations. There was the Merlion Cup. Philippines participated in that one. Singapore won. We then proceeded to go into an AFF championship. when you look at the squads of the teams that competed in those first two tournaments and the SEA Games, that's essentially they ripped out the squad.
Yeah.
So then when you're looking at utilizing the SEA Games as a means of, as a showcase of youth development, it looks like there's a bit of a, how would you call it? There's a disconnect there. There's a disconnect, right? I mean, 90% of the individuals who participated in the SEA Games, where are the Burlongans? Where are, the whole team essentially is gone. They got sidelined.
Yeah.
So what happens to them is my question. Like, what do we do to these kids who are essentially being primed for their senior career? It seems like, on the outside looking in, that there's going to be a bit of a cluster. What's the right word for it? There's a situation. There's going to be a problem, right? I mean, so what are your thoughts on that situation?
Okay, let's plot the timeline for the SEA Games preparations for the men's team. I was involved in the initial stages. So we joined the AFF competition in late January. Sorry,
Late January.
We had maybe around a 10-day preparation for that, and we weren't able to secure the players that we wanted because the notice came too late. The UAAP schedule was already set in place.
Right.
So the UAAP couldn't move the schedule anymore, and a lot of the teams, because of the short notice, wasn't able to send some of their players. So we were left with no choice. But we got a lot of the UP players because we were allowed. The agreement was if a school releases I think 3 or more players, then the games of that particular school would be moved.
Delayed.
Right.
Yeah. If I recall, you guys played very few games in that season, right?
But then again, some schools, even with this agreement, they felt like it would be a higher risk for them to release their players too soon on a short notice. So a lot of the players that we wanted didn't make it.
Okay.
And then so we went to the AFF competition, and then like the PFF's main objective for joining the competition was check which players are potentially qualified for the SEA Games. So just check them. See who's doing well, who do you think can perform at the SEA Games level. So that was the main objective. So but it was a very hard situation for the rest of the team because of course our minds were, had we had this player, then things could have been different. We could have performed better. And the short preparation was definitely a disadvantage. Us not knowing some of the players fully well.
Yeah.
But Filipino kids, when they play abroad, when they go out, they don't think about whether they've prepared well enough or not. They will go out fighting. So the group really came out fighting. During our first game against Vietnam, we scored first, but Vietnam came back with 2 goals in the last 20 minutes of the game. It could have been a huge result for the team. And to think, the group that we had mostly consists of players who haven't played professionally. They've only played at the UAAP level.
Right.
And most of the players from the other countries, Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, those boys are already playing professionally.
Right.
So we are really at a disadvantage. It was very evident with the physicality of the game, and of course the game sense, maturity. Aside from the fact that they've prepared as a team for a longer period of time, and most of these teams have rose up from the U14 team, U16 team, now into the U22 team. So they pretty much have an established style of play and cohesiveness. So those were the disadvantages that we had. And then coming back home, we lost all our 3 games. And then the next competition was AFC,
Okay.
which was a bigger competition. I believe the team was able to get more players. That's correct. Yeah.
When was this competition?
I think it was May.
So tapos na UAAP
May.
at
Not
that
yet,
time,
not
or
yet.
almost finished.
Almost finished.
Well, in the closing
Almost finished,
stages, no?
Yeah. So it was the same story with the AFF competition, except for maybe having a few more quality players in the squad.
Right.
Like a few days preparation, and then the same thing with the Merlion Cup.
Yeah.
So it's a cycle. Like,
Sure.
and then after that last competition, the Merlion Cup, there was a coaching change, or like no, not really a coaching change, because our contract as coaches for those competitions were on a per competition basis. So technically, we were out of job as soon as the competition concluded.
Wow.
So that was the timeline, and then they got a coach for the SEA Games team, and then the direction was to get more overseas players.
Right. Right.
And a lot of those players who were involved during the build-up didn't make it to the team.
That's right. So how do you feel about that? I mean, obviously, you saw an improvement, right?
Mhm.
There are the same teams that we struggled to play against in the AFC, AFF,
Mhm.
right? This time, you're able to maybe make it a little bit more competitive, right? But
Yeah.
the team is composed, however, of players who are not produced here in the Philippines. You've got the likes of, Bas, Gallantes, and the like, who look as if they're promising young players. However, not produced here. So how do you feel about the under-22 team being supplemented with players from abroad and sprinkled in with players who are homegrown, some who are not playing in their natural positions? But, what do you think about the how the team was set up and what effect that might have, on the national team program?
I would have been fine with it had this been way back in 2011-12, when right after the miracle in Hanoi, there was a surge in football's popularity, and a lot of it was because of the rise in quality of our team brought by the overseas players.
Yeah.
I was all for it, but at the same time, I was also waiting for something to be built at the bottom. So you build the top, okay, getting the overseas players, raising the level of play of also the homegrown players, bringing the country like into from as low as rank 200 plus to as high as 124, 130.
Sure.
Okay, that's a huge improvement. But then again, it will always have a ceiling, because when you play bigger teams, Vietnam, Thailand, when you play bigger teams, cohesiveness, a common style of play, an established style of play, will be the most important things, and not individual talent. What we have is individual talent. Quality-wise, like Gallantes has very good quality. From before, like Shock, the Young Husband brothers, they have very good quality. But it can only bring us so far. Maybe we can beat the likes of Laos, the smaller countries, with individual quality. When we're up against teams like Vietnam, who can play with their eyes closed because they've played together for a long time. They grew up under one playing system. They're very much aware of their own strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
Then we won't have any chance at all.
Sure.
So, yes, that getting overseas players has its advantages, but it has a ceiling. It's not sustainable. So, personally, in my opinion, I believe that we have to also build something from the ground up, and that's what I'm really passionate about. And seeing the recent SEA Games squad just fired up this passion some more. Like, as a youth coach in the country, as someone who has been through the ups and downs of Philippine football, I have this great sense of responsibility to produce homegrown players who can in the future play for the national team. And I want to see one day, and we can all be proud that, hey, all of these kids develop their football here in the country.
Yeah.
With the help of Filipino coaches.
I think it was in the podcast with Alvin, that episode where they were talking about maybe it's difficult to find a very creative player, someone like a Stefan Schrock out there that is homegrown.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe Joven Bidik is maybe a rarity in his capability to be a creative sort of outlet on the pitch. How difficult is it to create individuals of that nature, and do you think we have the capacity to create a lot of those here in the country?
To be honest with you, as long as football isn't played in the streets, we won't produce such creative players. I think it's the key ingredient to producing creative players. Kids have to play football on their own, not guided.
Outside of supervision.
Because that's when they build the hours. That's when they learn to solve problems, not with coaches around. So it's also one thing I'm really I want to push for, is the promotion of the sport,
right? Especially
Especially in the grassroots level. And PFF has its programs like the Kasibulan Project. It's like they hold the festivals of football. Like, they introduce football to 500, 600 kids.
Right.
But it's just a one-time thing. It's not continuous.
Sure.
What we need is something that you can just leave there, and then it can just grow. So football promotion is one thing that we really have to also focus on, not just building football from the top. Finding success with the Azkals, it's never going to be enough.
It seems though we've gotten lucky in that, all right, maybe in terms of youth development, this last SEA Games wasn't the best. This crop or the crop that was being nurtured for that competition didn't have an opportunity to to test themselves at that level, to expose themselves to that level. However, because of the competitiveness and the closeness, the proximity to qualifying that they got to, has somewhat created a bit more attention on football again in the country, at least in terms of coming out to games and all of that. So it seems we have another opportunity similar to 2010 where we can utilize or parlay that attention to creating grassroots programs.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems to be that way, right? And Ivan, who is the media officer of Ceres, had an interesting conversation with people from Vietnam. Obviously, they've been winning everything lately. They won the Suzuki Cup. They won the SEA Games for men's and women's. They say that the federation had nothing to do with it. Over the last 10 years, it's been the clubs who have been making partnerships with high-level academies and creating, I suppose, a very strong entry into the public domain in getting kids into football. Yeah. How do you feel about that kind of approach rather than relying on the federation, which seems to be rather disappointing most of the time. Whether rightly or wrongly, there are people who like to point the blame at the PFF. Yeah. Do you feel as if that's something that will change?
I'm not losing hope that it will change, but if there's one thing that PFF has to do, is it has to set the vision. It has to provide the direction. What path are we as coaches, we as club owners, we as schools, what path are we gonna take to reach one objective, a unified objective? And what is that goal? Do we have that in place? And it's a big question mark. That's why a lot of people here, the stakeholders in football, we have our own thing.
Which is?
Some schools, they just want to win for their own school. Academies, just putting out programs for business.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's no vision. What we have our own visions per school, per academy, but I believe it's the federation's role to set a common vision and sell that to all the stakeholders.
Right.
And that vision is not just, coming from a highfalutin idea. It has to be studied. It has to be researched. I listened to Chris's and Alvin's podcast, and Chris shared about they talked about the
manual.
The manual.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they also brought up the period when Germany changed its approach after a failed European campaign, if I'm not mistaken. And before they even set a new vision, they studied what the problems were. And they did a lot of research. They had everyone on board. Okay, sought everyone's opinion, the clubs, the schools, most especially the clubs, and then they came up with a plan, and that set the tone for setting a vision. For Germany, I think they required all clubs to play a particular formation. They provided maybe a sort of a handbook for what types of players should we be developing for each position in this particular style of play, and they handed it down to the clubs, and they gave a mandate. If you don't follow, I think the policy was if clubs don't follow, none of their academy players or club players will be considered for the national team.
Wow.
So they had that will to really implement the vision and convince everyone that this is the only way to go for German football to succeed.
Yeah.
It's the same with Belgium.
Sure.
They came out with a blueprint for youth development. It came out after a 2-year study. They basically overhauled how clubs train their players, how competitions were run. One example was for U7 competitions, they had it 5v5 before, and then after thorough research, like they saw that kids playing 5v5 in a certain amount of time were only making X number of touches, as opposed to making it 2v2, and in a shorter period of time, the kids were able to make like 10 times more touches compared to a 5v5 format. So it's one area of the vision. And for me, basically, it's having that vision and how do we get there,
right?
And then selling it to to us, to the clubs, to the schools, with the main goal of producing national team players. And it's a reality that, you teach 100 players like the best possible way you could, expose them internationally, make them train together. You're lucky to get maybe 2-3 players who will go all the way.
Sure.
But with that approach, focusing on the youth, the benefits of football, of sports, the values formation, the learning respect, sportsmanship, all of those things, they're far-reaching, rather than focus your efforts on the top and spend how much just to get a win, just to progress to the next phase, and the benefits won't be as far-reaching as when you build it from the ground.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Actually, as much as I'd like to see homegrown players reach the very top, like you said, it's maybe 2-3% of everybody that touches a ball, who plays the game of football, that is gonna become a star, that is gonna become an outstanding player. But that's not what really matters.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I played football growing up. I played basketball growing up. Currently involved in like martial arts, like jiu-jitsu. It's the same. It's like it's all character building at the end of the day, right? It's teaching your child to get up and improve when they lose, to handle defeats correctly. How do they step out onto the pitch? Is it to get a win or is it to improve, as you mentioned, right? So there's a lot of those putting them into these stressful environments and see how they react. There's so many things that you can grab from it that it's more than just wins and losses in my mind. Right?
Definitely. So there has to be also a coaching philosophy shift. That's why I mentioned to you about us not talking about winning with our teams, but mostly about setting goals, establishing positive traits, more than winning.
Yeah.
Because in the end, there can only be one winner.
Yeah.
And then if all teams, all the kids, their mentality is just to win, and not being a winner will, what is this all about if I don't win?
Right.
But the sport is, or all sports is more than just winning. It's like what you said, character building, giving your best.
Yeah.
Okay. So another side of that vision is, setting the right coaching philosophy.
It seems like a tough one though. Like easy on paper to say that there's going to be one guy who's going to be our evangelist, who's going to set the framework and then convince everybody that this is the right way to go. But to me, when I'm looking at it and I'm envisioning it, it seems like it's going to come organically out of conversations with you, with Alvin, with JP, and Coach Aris. And it's basically just you guys coming together and talking and agreeing, essentially, how you guys want to steer the ship. Because it doesn't seem as if there's more qualified individuals to be doing it. I mean, you guys are highly... what license are you guys on at the moment?
I haven't finished my A. I lack some requirements.
You lack some requirements on your A, but you're there or thereabouts in that A license area. I think Coach JP is same, right?
He just took, I think he
just finished the course, so we'll see about the results. But Coach Marjo is A, I believe. So you guys are all there in terms of your know-how of the sport and your experience. So we'll just be waiting then, I guess, for you guys to
we've actually started. We had a meeting, like just an exchange of ideas among young coaches.
Perfect.
Like Alvin, a few more, Avery of Football Fanatics, Candice, Miguel Bermundo of Dream Big Pilipinas.
Okay.
So we've shared some ideas and thoughts, and we all agree that let's do our own job within our backyards, and hopefully the rest will follow the lead, and then once we establish something, then maybe that's when we can bring it up further. And we've talked about also talking to Coach Aris, getting his thoughts, his insights, because he's been there for the longest time and his heart is really for football. So yeah, we're working towards that, and hopefully we can have more minds.
Yeah.
And and all of these ideas, hopefully we also turn them into concrete actions.
Right. Programs that can be set in place. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of what you have, jotted down as your approach. You feel that would be beneficial to the Philippines down the road. But what do you think about the stature of a Filipino, the general traits that you see in the footballers that come through? What kind of style? What style of play do you see us implementing that would be beneficial to the Philippines?
I'd love to see a high pressing style of play, really fast paced. I think we can be very good in transition, but we have to improve our football IQ. I don't think a lot of Filipinos have very good football IQ, but that comes from not really playing a lot of football,
right.
Especially the younger age groups, not playing a lot of free play.
Yeah.
But with our physical traits, with our fighting mentality, I think we can definitely play a pressing style.
Right.
Fast pace. I think we have a lot of good wingers. Fast wingers, agile wingers. So maybe for me a 4-3-3 formation. But that formation entails a lot of entails very high technical ability.
Right.
So it's the job of the coaches, the technical department of the federation to work on that. Those are just a few of the traits that I observe, and the corresponding maybe style that would be best suited for our traits.
It should be entertaining to watch as well, which is good. It's good for the spectators. Speaking of free play, did you get a lot of that growing up?
Not really.
Where did you grow up anyway?
I grew up in Davao. I lived there from 4 to 10 years old.
Okay.
I played basketball.
Really?
I'm a frustrated PBA player. Yeah.
Point guard. I'm
Point
hoping.
guard. Yeah. Unfortunately, when we moved to Manila, I tried out for my school.
Uh-huh.
I was fielded for only 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Wow.
Because the coach wanted tall players.
Wasn't a believer of Muggsy Bogues, that guy, huh?
Not a believer at all. So I was so frustrated. I thought to myself, until this coach is kicked out, I won't have any chance of making it to the basketball team.
Right.
And then I was a very active kid growing up. I played all sorts of... I wanted to get involved in all forms of physical activity. So during that summer, I saw a post about a summer program in my school, and then I had an old pair of boots from my cousin, and then why don't I try football? And then I tried it, and then I think it was love at first sight for the both of us. I think because I was very agile, so the coach Bob Salvacion, he saw me and he was so impressed because I was just running a lot. I was fast, I was quick. And then I remember him on my first training day. I got fouled, and then he asked me to kick a penalty kick. I don't know how to kick a ball. So I kicked it with my toes. Yeah. And fortunately it went in. So after that I started feeling good about the sport, and then I just that was the beginning.
How old were you?
I was 10.
You were 10?
Yeah.
And you were just kicking a football for the first time at 10? Wow. And this was in Claret?
In Claret.
Claret in Quezon City.
Yeah.
Wow. There's a great football program over there. I remember going up against Claret once or twice back when I was in high school. I went to CSA, and we would go over there and get our butts kicked by the Claret folks. The Claret guys are good. Very good. At least during my generation.
Your generation.
My generation, my team sucked a lot. Our coach didn't even come out. It was always is the coach going to come through or no? And sometimes if he does come, he'll just have a scrimmage anyway. So it's we weren't learning. Honestly, we weren't progressing our game. We just show up to games, and do our best, basically
but
what it was.
I reached the time when CSA was really a strong team.
Yeah.
This was maybe the players were born 96, 97.
They were
at the
born
time.
96.
Born 96, 97 because
okay.
I'm 99. I got to play with them.
Wait a minute. Born 96.
Yeah.
You weren't born 97.
99. I'm born 99. I'm born 81.
There you go.
Batch 99.
There you go. You're
Batch
killing me.
99.
I'm like, how is this
sorry.
possible?
Anyway, so maybe born 78, 79.
Okay. All right.
The likes of Greg Mora, Paulo Ansaldo, those guys, oh man, they trashed us 9-0.
There was a golden generation that came through.
Yeah.
And that was back then where they were still training and everything was good. That didn't unfortunately did not spill over to my generation. Yeah. So we were going over to Quezon City and getting our butts kicked by these Claret kids who were like, wow, that kid can turn, he can touch, he can like turn find room in tight spaces, So it's nice to see, and you were part of this. So Bob Salvacion, what was it like being under him? I see his name thrown around a lot. A lot of people have gone through his program and have say great things about him. Personally, I've not had a real interaction with Coach Bob, unfortunately, but I see a lot of his products still around in the game. So he must have done
like
something right.
a second father to me. I probably spent more time with him than my dad.
Really?
Because he was my first coach, so my whole grade school years, and then a number of my high school years, and then 5 years in college. So we were together for quite some time.
So he coached Claret and UP.
Yeah.
Ah.
So he's the type. He is a developmental coach. Although he shouts a lot, but he really focuses on technical development. He has a good eye also on picking out talents. But I think the most important trait he probably has passed on to me was his passion. He was the most passionate football person ever.
Yeah.
He lived. He would die for football. And then so I think for me at a young age I was, how can this guy love football so much? What's in it with football?
Yeah.
And maybe that's when I realized, wow, football can do this to a person. And then I guess I was quite inspired by it. I never thought I'd be coaching football. I never thought, I haven't looked too far ahead with my playing career. I even thought of shifting to basketball during my last year in high school.
Really?
Because I was still playing barangay level basketball.
Yeah.
And I still had that passion for basketball. So, and then, I needed school. So I went to UP. He was the coach there. So.
Scholarship.
Yeah.
Full ride in UP? What did you take as a course?
I finished sociology.
Really?
And then I took up sports science.
You still practice a bit of sociology? You still read up on the books, get involved in?
Not a lot anymore.
Does that
so busy with the football stuff.
Does that come into play at all with coaching or no?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
Yes.
How does that help?
Especially with the socio emotional economic side of the players, trying to understand where they're coming from, and then understanding the dynamics of the player dynamics, relationships. It helps.
So when you moved here to the Philippines, your whole family moved from Davao to Manila.
My parents were already in Manila. So we grew up. Me and my ate grew up in Davao under my tita and lola. So we moved to Manila to be with our parents.
I see. Do you still go back to Davao a lot?
Yeah, the last time was 2 years ago. Maybe every 2 years we come home.
I see. You get a lot of talent over there from Davao. Is that a main area for recruitment for UP or no?
UP, not really, because they go to LaSalle. because one of the main coaches in Davao went to LaSalle, so he brings the good players from Davao to LaSalle first.
Right. Do you think that's going to be the trend moving down the road, that everybody's going to be coming from the provinces still and then making their way over to Manila? Or do you think Manila will be able to produce its own talent?
I think Manila has also been producing its own talent. For example, in our current team, we have a good balance. Actually, no. For this year, we have more provincial-based players.
Right.
But for the how many years that I've been coaching, there has been a good balance. But yeah, I guess the last couple of years, there have been more provincial players.
Yeah.
The main difference that I have observed from Manila-based players to provincial players is creativity.
Really? So it's more of that playing casually lang.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
Sa bagay, no? There's very few like open play type situations here in the Philippines.
And
in Manila rather.
kids in Manila are coached too early.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
So what age is too early?
As early as U7, U9.
That's too early.
A lot of coaches like their main objective is already winning.
Right.
So that's coaching a kid to win.
Yeah.
Instead of, allowing them to
Explore.
grow, to explore.
Suck the fun right out of the game,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
All about winning. So when you graduated from UP, you went Claret, then UP. You played 5 years in UP, won 2 championships.
Mhm.
You played midfield already at this time,
Midfield,
or you played midfield? You're not a big guy, right?
I'm not.
I always I gravitated towards your game because I always felt like, wow, Anto is like my size. He's bouncing off these.
You can easily identify.
Yeah. And he's picking up the ball in tight spaces. He's willing to receive the ball in those tight spaces. Always breaking up attacks. How did you mold your game growing up into that little battler in the middle?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't consider myself as a technical player. Maybe basic technical player. I'm not like a magician with a ball.
Sure.
But I think I have a good football IQ. I read the game very well. I always analyze the game. I make it the point that I'm 2-3 steps ahead of my opponent. So I think that's my main asset, together with my lungs.
Right.
I love to run.
Yeah. Even until now, like you I'm sure you can run some of your athletes into the ground.
Oh man, not anymore. Not anymore.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, your diet's super clean too, right? You're always
somehow.
Yeah?
I've kept a bit of that discipline from my playing years.
Yeah.
I've stayed in shape, but not football match fitness.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who stop playing, balloon up immediately.
Yeah.
Maybe not even a year into it, they're already got the dad belly going on and all that. That hasn't happened to you at all.
I don't think it will ever happen. I get stressed when I don't get to work out for 2 days straight.
You're like
as much as possible, I want to work out every day.
You're like Ali Borromeo, that guy, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are like that. You guys are like athletes to the core.
Yeah.
Need to be up and running all the time.
It's my fuel.
Yeah. Well, that's good. At least you ain't gotta worry about the dad bod down the road, right?
Yeah.
That's always good. The playing career, the first time that I met you was actually UFL. I think you were coaching Diliman. We were at a game in Ascom, and I recall what struck me the most was how mildly mannered you were. You were apologizing to me because some of your players were late. And you guys were gonna have to start the game with not a complete roster or something like this, right? And while everybody was bitching at me that day because it was just the start of the competition, everybody had an excuse of a uniform and that baka pwedeng palusutin mo na lang yung ginatong guy ko, and he's gonna be arriving in 10 minutes. Don't worry about it. Maybe you could check again. You weren't making any excuses. In fact, you were very apologetic about the lateness of your team, and then you guys got shellacked after that. As Diliman, I remember like. Hey man, the team wasn't great, but that guy was really nice. It was a nice way for me to be introduced into the community. And then later on, to see you play Diliman, and then later on with Pachanga, and I was like, hey, that's the same guy. He's a killer on the pitch, man. But he's like super mild mannered off it. but you're like there's a disconnect between the character that you have on the pitch and the one off it. But when you're on the sidelines, you're also different.
Yeah, I can be different.
It's like you compartmentalize these three different people inside you. What is that like? How do you work that out? You know, like you change, you morph once the football and the pitch are part of the mix.
I think I'm a very passionate person, especially with football.
Yeah.
So I do get emotional sometimes, but I think oftentimes I'm level-headed when needed. But like my pet peeves, like from a coaching standpoint, when players are not working hard enough, then I lose it. You know, but that's me trying to, you know, influence them to correct. Sometimes I can be compassionate also, especially when I know that the player is trying, really trying, but unfortunately, like he couldn't or she couldn't like get his or her game. But when I feel that he or she is really trying her best, then I can have a more compassionate approach.
Man, how would you describe your playing career? Like, is there anything else that you wanted to do outside after you retired in 2017? Are you retired?
Yeah,
you are officially.
Yeah, as soon as I retired, after I retired, I actually never looked for like a competitive game.
Really? Huh?
Yeah. I think the traffic, you know, just exhausted me. From QC to McKinley, worth 4 hours in traffic. But yeah, I think I spent my tank already in terms of playing. I've had a long career. I've had this back and forth of, you know, I might want to just coach, you know, with Meralco, and then actually there was back in 2016, I thought I was ready to retire and just do coaching, help Coach Harris with Meralco. And then the first training session, when I got to the training session and the players were kicking around, and then fudge, I cannot kick around because I'm gonna be a coach. And then they run through their sessions. Fudge, I wanna be there. I wanna sweat. I wanna get those tackles in. So after that training session, I realized that you're not yet ready to retire, you know. So I talked to Coach Harris. Coach, I still wanna play. Fortunately, there was an opening in the midfield because we had some players injured.
Right.
So, hey, Anto, okay, maybe we can try you. Okay. Yes, coach. I've stayed in shape, and so there. I got a break, and then went back to playing.
You've been able to play now. Obviously, you went through your college career. You went through to the UFL, and then into. Did you make it to the PFL, or was it? Well, no, there was, right? Just the first
2 years.
Oh, the 2 years
in the PFL.
In the PFL, right? So, you've seen the trajectory of the highest level of the game over the last 10 years, I would say. Has the football improved, and how much has it improved in your mind?
Oh, from the beginnings of the UFL?
Yeah.
Man, it probably has improved tenfold.
Wow.
Back in the day when UFL started, there was Kaya, Air Force. No, not even Air Force. But eventually they joined.
Yeah.
Union.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this level right now, like those overseas players coming to play here, Shrock, you know, it just upped the level tenfold. The foreign players are, you know, have played like first division in Spain, so we have a good bunch of players here. Both international and those Filipinos who were raised abroad. So that alone definitely uplifted the quality of play in the professional level.
So what was it like for you? Obviously, right? I mean, you talk about that tenfold leap.
Mhm.
You're in the middle of that transition, right? You're a homegrown player produced in Manila, essentially, right? Didn't even touch a ball until you were 10. So you're already late in the game, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids right now who you'd expect, if we're going to bridge that gap into becoming a real force against Vietnam and Thailand, that these kids who are 10 years old with the ball at their feet are supposed to be magic already, right? At 11 and 12, they should be focusing on tactics. Their technical ability is already there.
Yeah.
So you're not there, right? You're 10. You're just touching a ball for the first time. You go through your college career going through the level that you're expecting, and then it takes a leap. So what is that like for you? I mean, to bridge that gap, to play alongside opponents, all of a sudden they're like, damn, sobrang mas magaling to from what I'm used to. What's that like?
I think I'm very self-aware with my strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's helped me a lot with me as a football player. Knowing that I'm not as technical as the other players, I realized that I had to work on the areas that they weren't really comfortable doing. What is that? Most technical players don't like to work. They don't like defending. They don't like getting those second balls.
Yeah.
They don't like covering for a teammate.
Yeah.
So those were the areas that I covered. So I think a lot of the teams that I played for found use with that kind of player. And not a lot of players want to do that. The job that I am willing to do. That's why Phil Young Husband was the first person to approach me. When I was playing for Diliman, he just messaged me, "Hey Anto, would you wanna come over to Meralco?" And at that time, Diliman was playing in the 2nd division.
Yeah.
And then he told me, playing in the 1st division will also help you get into the national team again.
Yeah.
Playing at a higher level. And for the longest time, because the last competition I had for the national team was back in 2007, and then that was 2012.
Right.
But during that period, I still had it in me that desire to one day play for the national team again. And I had a period when I did corporate work, so I was out of the sport as a player.
Really?
So I did corporate work and coaching.
What were you doing?
I was an executive assistant for this company.
Yeah?
A company owned by a former teammate.
Really?
So I did that for 3 years. And then, but during those years, I was really, I had that vision that one day I will be given a chance. So, after work, I'd finish at 7. I'd run around the BGC because our office was in BGC. So I'd run. I'd set myself a goal like 10 rounds in X number of minutes. And, there were a lot of moments when, I just wanted to give up. What am I doing this for? What is this for? And then it would hit me that, Anto, you never know. You might be given the chance and you want to be ready. So I carried that mentality with me for those 3 years that I wasn't playing. So I managed to stay in shape. And then, when the UFL moved to UMAC, actually Kaya was was the first club I played for. So that was the beginning. And then I was confident to take on the offer because I knew I was in shape.
Right.
And I felt like, this is one step closer to my goal, which was going back to the national team. And then from there it just it progressed, and then eventually I ended up with Meralco. I was able to go back to the national team. But it was really that mentality that once that opportunity arrives, you better be ready.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, you will regret it.
So you get into Meralco.
Yeah.
Phil Young Husband tapping up the players, by the way. How dare he? He's over there. Diliman.
he needs someone to do the dirty job.
So he's brought you over, and then what was the feeling like? I mean, you get back into the national team setup, right? You were hot property during that time. I recall, like, you know, it was rare to have a good midfielder, and as you mentioned, the one that would work his ass off, and you finally got there. What was the feeling like putting on that shirt again, suiting up for the national team?
It was really a source of joy and pride for me, considering where I started, so to speak, like not being with the sport for 3 years, having my last national team involvement like how many years ago? 5 years ago. So it was a huge achievement for me, but the same time I also sensed the gap in quality, because I got to play with Jerry Lucena, Dennis Cagara, those players, and I realized, man, they are like from another level. And to be honest, I felt like I think at this level, you know, just working hard enough, just being smart might not be enough. So I also had that realization and acceptance that if I wanna catch up, I need to do this full time. I'd have to leave coaching. And at my age, if I leave coaching behind and pursue this, I mean, what's the upside for me? And it's like it's not even sure if I'd be able to compete at that level. So, and I think one sign for me to maybe tell myself that, hey, that's it. You got back, but you know, maybe I got to play in the Peace Cup, some friendlies. I didn't make it to the Suzuki Cup lineup. So I thought to myself, like, maybe Anto, if you really wanna play at that level, you have to do a lot more.
Right.
Like giving up your job, sacrificing more, etc., etc. And you're not even gonna be sure if you'd be able to compete.
Right.
Because these players have been playing football like at a higher level and continuously.
Sure.
So in terms of mileage, they're way up there.
Yeah.
So I weighed, you know, and I'm the type of person who wants to, you know, feel that I'm contributing something. So I felt like, with playing, maybe not. I won't be able to contribute as much as when I'm coaching.
Right.
Because with coaching, a lot of kids rely on you, and I felt a bigger responsibility with coaching.
Wow.
So slowly that dawned on me, like maybe the playing has to, you know, take a back seat.
Was that a difficult decision to make?
Initially yes, because I still had that, you know,
That fire.
that
Yeah.
fire, but realizing that, you know, I mean, I think you can do so much more with coaching than with playing. Playing is just more for myself. Like, I'm not anymore a big part of the team. Like, I'm the team can do without me.
Right.
As opposed to coaching, if I let go of my coaching responsibilities or not do it like to the best of my abilities, then these kids will also suffer.
Yeah. That's an incredible you know, way of internalizing that decision. I mean, not everybody is as open with themselves in that regard, you know. That's wow, kudos to you for making that.
But not after, like, because back in 2012, 2013, that those years, I really, you know, I sort of, because those days with Morocco were very demanding. I needed to play at a really high level to be able to have a spot. And then we had Singapore Cup. You know, I would be away for like weeks. So I there were times that I left coaching behind.
Yeah.
And actually a few of my players that time were already, you know, asking me, Coach, or telling me, Coach, it's difficult when you're not around,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So that was also pretty hard on me
Sure.
because I knew they were also relying on me. So
To have that clarity though, right? To know
Yeah,
that
yeah.
maybe I'm not contributing the way I can be,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
somebody else could be.
Mhm.
That's not something that comes to a player very easily.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's a lot of ego involved.
Yeah.
And wanting to, point fingers at, the coach doesn't like me.
Yeah,
He just
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
prefer me, rather than accepting the fact that maybe, hey, I'm not the right piece for this puzzle anymore,
Yep.
right? Wow,
Exactly.
that's tough. I mean, maybe that's the reason why you're a good coach, right? That's the type of personality that makes you into a gem of a coach, And I personally, being involved in football in my own way, I'm more interested in cultivating individuals like you, because I feel like the impact is greater. So I feel like, I feel like I'm not a person of any sort of, how should you say, stature or anything like that, but I would say you've made the right choice in my own personal way, because you affect a larger group, right? If we as members of the football community are capable of producing 100 Antos, let's say 100 Antos, 100 Alvin Ocampos, then we would be well on our way. You know what I mean? Like, rather than producing players, like 100 of those,
Yeah.
we'd be better off if we had 100 coaches.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
we'd
yeah.
secure the future for the decades to come, right?
Because of the multiplier effect.
Yeah, but it compounds, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if you're a coach, if you're a player, you influence how many games, how many teams. That's it. I mean, if you're a coach, you affect generation upon generation upon generation of players, right?
Thank you for affirming my decision.
Well, in any way I can, of course. But yeah, I truly believe that, and there are now individuals who are coming out of this UAAP generation now, stepping into the PFL, stepping into the UFL game. Even before they graduate, in fact, they're already getting a taste of it, right? Some of them. And then when they step up into that next level, I'm seeing some of these young kids now who are not strangers to going shoulder to shoulder with Stefan Schrock on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
That has to be tremendous for the level of growth that this sport is going to have, right? Now that they say that there's going to be 3 years at the minimum that the PFL is going to run, at least there's a little bit of security involved, right? I mean, everybody was wondering whether there was going to be a league last year. I mean, this year in 2019 and there was a lot of instability. Is that the right word for it? Right? That provided sort of like, where are we going to go now?
Yeah.
Now that it seems like, okay, the PFL is going to be there for 3 years. The UAP is not going to go anywhere. There's so many good coaches. There's so many courses that are happening. It seems we're in the right path, right? Obviously, there are still some holes, gaping holes, especially in the National Youth Program. I believe would be something that would be of interest to you, right? Where do you see 5 years, 10 years? What's the vision look like for you for Philippine football down the road that you foresee?
If I were in charge of making that path for Philippine football, it will be I'd probably have to plan for one generation.
Okay.
I don't think it will happen in this generation.
Okay. I like
Maybe
this.
it's going to be a 20-year plan.
I like this because we're starting from scratch, right?
Yeah,
When you start from scratch completely, let's say if it's a 20-year plan, then these kids are not even born yet, right? So, yeah, sure, go ahead. Run me through it. Like, I'm very much interested to know because people talk about the World Cup, people talk about this and that, like it's possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
But if it is to become something of a regularity in the Philippine setup, there needs to be planning involved, and it could take 20 years. Right? It's not going to be a one-off.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? How do you feel as if we become a true player in the game of football?
I go back to what I shared earlier with regards to kids playing in the streets.
Okay.
So maybe like hopefully in the kids that will be turning 4 or 5 this year should be playing in the streets already. So the more kids playing in the streets, the better for us because we'll have a wider base.
Does it matter to you if it's on the pitch or on concrete or on courts?
I agree with Chris when he said that futsal is a very good technical development area for kids who want to pursue football.
Okay.
So definitely I'd go for futsal, and it will be more suitable for us because we don't have a lot of spaces for open pitches.
Exactly.
But we have a lot of courts, basketball courts. So yeah, definitely street football.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I'd want to see a barangay level competition.
Mm-hmm.
So all barangays having their own futsal or street football competition. And then aside from that, we'll have the of course the field competitions. And then we need a process of identifying and selecting potential players.
Right.
And then bringing these players together. Chris and Alvin mentioned the elite program,
Mm-hmm.
so which is missing, but is slowly being implemented by a few clubs,
Sure.
but very isolated. We need that. So all the best players playing together, all the best players playing against each other
In one competition.
in one competition.
So it's got to be like YFL, but Manila, Davao, Visayas,
we have
Mindanao.
district. Like the best format actually is what Palarong Pambansa is doing.
Right.
District meet, provincial meet, regional meet,
Yes.
and then national meet.
Perhaps not as compressed as
Yeah,
Palarong
definitely
Pambansa,
not
right?
as compressed. Yeah,
Because it's too quick. It's too
Yeah.
quick to decide the winners and all of that, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
and I'd want to move away from a school-based program to more of a community program or a club-based program, but clubs that are
based in the
based
community.
in the community.
I see.
Because then you can have more support. The parents, the friends,
Mhm.
the family members,
Yeah.
they will come out and watch
Right.
because these kids are from their community.
Yeah.
It's the method of most countries.
Yeah.
Is it doable in our country? I think so. So that's one method of also promoting the sport.
100%. That's going to be huge
Yeah.
for promoting the sport. But it kind of runs into your area of responsibility at the moment, right? With teams recruiting players for university, enticing individuals through education to come and travel from Mindanao and from Visayas to come to Manila. How do you combat that?
In European countries, they have an age cutoff that allow clubs to get players from, because they have a restriction, like a 5-kilometer radius for.
Okay.
Maybe I think that only applies to U12, U14 kids.
Okay.
But once they're in U16, clubs can now start getting players from all over.
So in the beginning, you're going to implement the community-based.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
To promote like locally based players
until around high school, late high school.
Yeah.
And then they can start being picked off by universities after that.
Yeah.
But ideally still clubs, you mean?
Yeah, and because the scope of the club is bigger than the scope of the schools.
Yeah.
Club-based communities, community-based clubs can accommodate more kids as opposed to schools. So I think there has to be a shift from a school-based competition, a focus on school-based competitions, to a club-based one.
Right.
So I think that's also vital. Now, what do you do with NCAA, UAAP? Maybe there's a way that we can converge and make everyone happy as long as it's for the development of the sport. So there, and then eventually you'll implement your vision, and then playing style, playing formation, player characteristics. You'll have coaches education all over. Hopefully your professional league is stabilized.
Yeah.
Because kids also need heroes or idols from that professional league and your senior team as well. But I think even if you don't have a very successful senior team,
Yeah.
as long as the kids enjoy the sport, I think they will keep on playing. It doesn't really matter if they can look up to someone. So that could be the approach.
Right.
And then set national age group competitions, and then from those competitions pull together the best players, form a national team for those players, and have a football calendar for 1 year. For example, the AFF competition, the AFF U16 competition is in June. Then set a U16 national competition maybe 6 months prior.
Right.
So you have enough time to choose and to prepare the team for that particular competition. So those are the steps I have in mind.
Yeah, it seems like it could become something that comes up and becomes a thing of regularity. Like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem far-fetched is what I'm trying to say, to put that into place.
And a lot of LGUs now are, putting money, supporting local clubs.
Yeah.
Like Laos, from what I know, Quezon City and Valenzuela, they have they support a football program run by Laos, which is a huge step, because
really,
you get kids who cannot afford get to get exposed to football, and they play competitively.
Laos the football club.
Yeah.
Here in the Philippines.
Yes.
They're still active. I didn't know.
Yeah, in the youth.
Nice.
They actually just sent a team to Borneo Cup, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the barangay level, because I feel like that's the most underutilized sector in Philippine football at the moment. We have the very low ones, like at the underprivileged communities get served, and then the private schools get served. But everybody in the middle is kind of like, bala na kayo, diba?
Yeah.
So that's where I think a lot of the work needs to be placed. There's so many kids. I think like 80% of the kids are there.
And when you watch the YFL, like maybe 70% of the kids, like you, Chris and Alvin got to talk about the Play for Pay program.
Yeah.
Pay for play for pay.
It's pay to play.
Pay to play.
There you go.
Pay to play.
Yeah.
Okay. 70% of the kids playing the YFL are pay to play.
Yeah.
When I hope there would be an increase in kids not having to play, and they get to compete at that level.
Yeah. 100%. So what's keeping you busy right now? Obviously, you've got the two teams, right? You're no longer playing, but there are other ventures that are in motion at the moment. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay. We started Aspire Football Academy back in last year, and then we joined our first competition this year, the YFL. We have U7 and U9 kids.
Yeah.
So it's a passion project that's been in the back burner from my playing years. So it was something I really thought of doing after I retired from playing. We have a good group of coaches, all from UP, and then we're trying to set a coaching philosophy that we feel is more aligned with development, more athlete centered, not at all winning, And then we we built it from the ground up. So U7 and U9, and next year we're gonna have a U11 team, and so all my experiences as a player and as a coach, observing other clubs, other countries, their programs. We're trying to implement ideas that have been gathered from all those experiences into this academy.
Yeah.
So hopefully, we can make this program like a benchmark for youth development in the country. But we are also keen in working together with other coaches. Like what I told you earlier, we've met with Alvin, Candice, Avery, Miguel, to set a path for youth development, and hopefully we can come up with a blueprint of youth development one day.
Yeah.
So we want to share also our ideas. Hopefully it works. But so far we've seen a lot of positives.
Yeah.
The feedback from the parents have been very good. It's we had to transition their mindset from winning mindset, a lot of pressure on the kids, to a more process oriented approach. We're slowly getting there. I think the parents appreciate our efforts of focusing more on character building. Some parents naman are very demanding with regards to technical acquisition. But I believe that our program also prepares our kids to play at the highest level. We focus a lot on ball mastery. Our playing style is a build-up, short build-up playing style. So we do away with long balls, with punts. So each kid gets to touch the ball more often. And then we try to be as inclusive as possible. We have girls in our U9 team. We try to give playing time to our kids. We as much as possible we don't allow just 1-2 players to dominate. Yeah. So it's more of a team approach, but of course we encourage individuality as well.
Yeah.
Because in the end, football is like 1v1.
Yeah.
But we try to instill at this early age how to work together as a team. But we never compromise individual development for team development. So those are some of the ideas that we're implementing into our program.
Where are you getting a lot of your players at the moment?
Right now, most of our players from the U7 and U9 teams are from Ateneo. We have a few from Claret, a few from Xavier. Our girls come from Poveda and Miriam.
So Quezon City based mostly. Yeah. I see. And if they were wanting to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
We have a Facebook account.
Okay. Aspire
Football Academy.
Football Academy. So definitely check that out. One last thing I wanted to talk to you about were the rumors that the under-22 team are going to have an outfit involved in the PFL in the upcoming season, right? Are you a fan of that approach?
Yeah.
Putting together something like a Young Lions type of situation. I've been throwing this out there with other people in the football community. And one thing that I've been saying as a point of contention individually, personally for me is, how do you then take advantage of the outlying talent? Because if you throw them into an under-22 team, for example, you are less likely, in my mind, to get a LeBron James or a Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi is then, used to playing alongside Ronaldinho. He's used to playing alongside other stars in Barcelona rather than playing alongside his peers in an under-22 team, right? The first thing that came to mind was the Young Lions of Singapore and the Young Elephants of I think it was Laos, who played in these last Southeast Asian Games, right? So they're a cohesive team, been together the entire year. Crap. They were atrocious during the SEA Games, right? And then what I saw was a lack of that one special player. Couldn't even, he wasn't available. You couldn't find it, right? Whereas I feel as if there are 17, 16-year-olds who are special, who if you put them into a regular team, a regular club, he will more likely flourish and fill his potential rather than putting him in an under-22 setup. What are your thoughts on that?
Very valid thoughts or arguments. Actually, when we began handling the U22 teams for the pre-SEA Games competitions, it was one of our proposals to have them join the PFL. Because the preparations were quite short and we needed games, competitive matches. I think cohesiveness-wise, it can benefit the players.
100%.
With your argument of the Messi, LeBron argument,
just the outliers.
If we have a solid program from the U14, U16 up U19, then I don't think we can do away with having them all together in one team, and maybe allow them to play for different teams, because you've already established maybe partly the cohesiveness and the playing style early on, from the U14 up to the U19s. So it will be easier for them, even if they play separately. When they get back together, it will be easier for them to, get back to their familiarity.
Right.
But as is with our case, that we don't have that luxury of developing the system of play, of knowing the players early on from the U14 up to the U19 age groups. I think having them all together in one team compete in the PFL would be beneficial. Short term. Yes.
Well, it's been like an hour and change here that we've had a chance to talk. It's been a real pleasure for me to have you here and to sit you down and really pick your brain about these things. I wish you the best of luck in the upcoming UAAP season.
Thank you.
You're a real asset to the Philippine football community to have a man so insightful and ego-free in my mind. Willing to work with everybody.
Thank you so much.
And with the mindset of we're gonna grow this together. Everybody needs to grow this, and everybody has a part to play. So hopefully we'll be crossing paths for many more times in our in our tenure in Philippine football together. And I'm sure you're going to be back on the show. I hope you come back and speak with us
again.
when Chris Greatwich is here. Okay. I'm sure it'll make for a nice chat. But thank you so much for spending the time. Find him on Twitter, guys. I think it's Anto G6. You can find him on Instagram. I think it's Antokin.
Antokin.
All right. Anywhere else that they can find you?
That's it.
Check out Aspire Football Academy. Definitely do that, especially if you're in the QC area. Anto, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Catch you again soon. Appreciate it. Folks, if you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy the football content that we produce here on Across the Line, please do subscribe to the YouTube page on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Check back through the episodes. Make sure to comment, subscribe, and leave us some questions, some suggestions, all of that on our social media Across the Line on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your Football Friday.